Let's look at the situation with Austin, Texas. This is it's one of those things. I look at the promoter. I'm not sure that they're at that stature yet. You know what I mean? They go from promoting regional NASCAR races to an F1 race, which we know takes deep pockets, takes a ton of money, and Bernie holds it to a whole nother level when you look at the track itself. How are they going to do all this and have the money and 2 years down the line have a race in Austin, Texas?
Well, guys, if I were to take the conspiracy theorist approach, and I know you guys like to advance that every once in a while, I could look at this and say, let's analyze the last year and a half or so. If you had set out to make sure that the United States can never get a stronghold in F1, the first thing you would do is let a team that is, in hindsight, completely unequipped and unprepared to build and enter a car in a world championship, and you'd give them an entry and sit back and let them issue all their statements and let that whole thing go down the tubes. And then you would announce an F1 race that is, to call it bizarre. I mean, imagine how the guys at Indianapolis feel, given what they put into building what I think is one of the finest F1 facilities on the calendar, with a tradition of racing at Indianapolis, and to just totally ignore them and announce that you're going to build this supposed track, $250 million track, with private money, no less, guys, in the middle of what we all know to be the racing hotbed of the world, Austin, Texas. I mean, my jaw dropped, as I'm sure a lot of people's did when they heard that announcement. But, hey, everyone's putting on the brave face and issuing all the correct press releases. And I hate to be Mr. Negative on any guy's moment in the spotlight, so, let's wish him the best. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to go to Vegas right now and get anybody to give you odds on an F1 car taking a lap inside of Austin, Texas within the next 2 years.
Well, joining us on the phone, Mr. Negative, Ardy Arani, Ardy Arani's Insider's Report. Let's go.
You got bad hair, and I don't like your sidekick either.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, I want to go. Let's keep that negativity going.
Or is it he with the bad hair, and I don't like you? I can't keep them straight.
It doesn't matter, really. Either way, yeah.
Yeah, you both have bad hair.
I don't have hair.
Chad Hurley comes out and says, hey, he's interested in buying a customer car, filling that space up in 2011. Montezemelo came out from Ferrari and said, hey, there's a team looking to do a 2011 customer car. And then this Cypher Group has submitted a letter of interest for the 2011. How does this all tie in? Are we going to see a U.S.-based team?
Hang on a second. I'm sorry. Bernie, where do I sign?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I was doing my letter of interest.
Take your hand out of my pocket.
Yeah. Hey, keep your wallet in your pants. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, are this just more that bubbling up to Bernie trying to make us look bad again?
I don't know if I go that far. The customer car is an intriguing one, but bear in mind, there was a guy sitting there with all the assets of Toyota that couldn't manage to get his customer car on the grid. So for whether it's a Chad Hurley or anybody else, to announce that they're going to cut some kind of a deal with Ferrari, I think that statement in itself, without some evidence of the infrastructure that goes along with it, and I'm talking about facilities, people, engineers, technical support, so on and so on and so on, hey, it all sounds great, until you hear the engine running. We used to joke about would we ever see the US F1 transporter pull into Birmingham. Until that happens, hey, it all sounds great in racing. But as we know, guys, these aren't statements that some guy is going to pull together a Mustang Challenge car. These are statements that someone's going to build $250 million racing facility with private money in an area that, let's just be generous and say, really has no demonstrated support for auto racing beyond maybe a couple of local short tracks. And now there's some guy saying he's going to go cut a deal with Ferrari and pony up, what would you say, $50 to $100 million a year operating budget to run an F1 team? Yeah, okay.
Easily that.
I'm on standby waiting to see that.
I mean, a $50 million budget isn't going to do it.
Right.
It's
50
just
to 100. Put it in perspective. That's like twice of what it costs to fill up Ray Hall's yacht. I mean, it's real money.
Yeah.
877
Well, the girls are half of it.
Yeah.
God, they've gotten expensive.
Maintain. 877-99 on Fox, 877-996-6369. Those are the numbers. Don't forget, you can watch us live on the internet right now with a live video cast at speedtv.com. Just look for my picture up there. Click it. Hey, we're talking to Ardy Arani, Ardy Arani's Insider's Report. Let's find out. We were talking about this earlier during the week with Paul Tracy not making the 500. Geico always seemed to be a backer here. Another backer they have with that blue and red paint scheme with Geico is Max Pappas, who doesn't make all the races either. Talk about that as a business deal, because you see in the NHRA, they've obviously spent money on certain teams that are running each and every week, and that is those yellow and white and black cars that you see out there. But these seem the red and blue Geico schemes. Is that a special deal that they have going on?
Well, it's interesting, Rob. You're right. They have not had much luck. In fact, I don't think Max is racing at Charlotte, is he?
I don't think so. I don't think he made the field. I'll double-check that while you're talking about it, but I don't think he made the field again.
What's his car number?
13.
Well, I thought that had something to do with it, but in true insider's fashion, I started digging around and spent some time in the garage, undercover. And what I've determined here and found out, guys, is somewhat shocking. But the reason that both those cars, Paul Tracy and Max, missed races this weekend, they have a very big racing weekend,
1 minute,
is that the engineering duties on both those cars were being handled by the Gecko.
Well, that explains a hell of a lot, no doubt about that. Hey, Ardy, can we get your quote of the day before we head out?
They figured, since he had that British accent, he must be smart. So,
Yeah.
there you have it.
Hey, Ardy, what's your quote of the day before we head out?
Well, you got to give it to Kyle Petty. You may have heard him during the induction ceremony talking about his father, Richard, and I thought this was a classic. He said, Richard would go to the shop early in the morning, and because our house was right next door, he came home at lunchtime, and then he laid down on the floor, took a nap for 3 or 4 hours, and went back to work.
This
and he
is classic.
said, quote, "It's amazing that this guy achieved all that he did, all those championships, only working half day."